Good evening and welcome to the June 20th, 2018 legislative session of the Town Board. I'll officially call this meeting to order, and I'll ask everyone to please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I'll ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Cole.
Here.
LaFountain.
Here.
Metzler.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Quinn.
Here. Okay, we'll begin with our communications and announcements, and I'll recognize our town clerk first.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The federal primary election day will be held next Tuesday, June 26th, from noon until 9 p.m. This will be a registered Democratic primary only to select the party candidate for New York's 25th Congressional District. Voters should report to their designated polling facilities to cast their ballot. Voting locations can be confirmed by going to www.monroecounty.gov and clicking on Check voter information. Due to this election, the mobile DMV office will not be available at the Town Hall on June 26th. Primaries for any state or local elections will be held on September 13th if necessary. For additional information, please contact me at 340-8629 or email clerk@penfield.org. I have a second communication that our Shepherd Homes 8th Annual Golf Tournament will be held on Monday, July 23rd at Penfield Country Club, 1784 Jackson Road. Shepherd Home is a comfort care facility in Penfield that provides compassionate end-of-life care. The Shepherd Home exists solely on funds received by donations, memorials, and/or fundraisers. This golf tournament is one of their primary fundraisers. Early bird registration is available through July 10th by calling 381-0890. Some flag and tee sponsorships are still available for purchase. Individuals, groups, or organizations are welcome to bring a table and interact with participants during the day. For any additional information, you can call me at 340-8629 or visit shepherdhome.org. Once again, Shepherd Home's 8th Annual Fundraising Golf Tournament will be held on Monday, July 23rd at Penfield Country Club, 1784 Jackson Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, everyone, and happy summer to all of the young students. I know that it's now about 2 months to the next school night, so that's what we're looking forward to. One announcement this evening: to guarantee safe passage for emergency vehicles during the town's Independence Day celebration, parking restrictions will be enforced. No parking signs will be posted on Friday, June 29th, and removed after the event. The Monroe County Sheriff's Department will be monitoring compliance. Tickets will be issued and cars will be towed at owner's expense. A complete list of parking restrictions is available at www.penfield.org under Quick Links. Please note that restrictive traffic patterns will also be going into effect on June 30th in and around Route 441 during the annual parade and park activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Metzler.
I have two announcements this evening from our Department of Public Works. If you spend time at Greenwood Park for lacrosse, tennis, or using the new playground, you will see our DPW crews have expanded the parking lot to better serve you. Greenwood has become very popular, and parking has always been at a premium. Additional lighting is also planned for installation. Please take advantage of the additional spaces that are now available. Also, several weeks ago, a project began at our Department of Public Works complex to remove diseased and dying trees along with the Red Barn, which had surpassed its useful purpose. Removal of these items was to make way for a new and more efficient pole barn structure. The site is prepared, the contract has been awarded, and the construction should begin over the next few weeks. We would like to sincerely thank our Senator Rich Funke, who secured a significant New York State grant on behalf of Penfield so that we would be able to undertake this project. That's all I have for this evening.
Thank you. I have just a couple of brief announcements. As you drive by the DPW facility, in addition to seeing the barn and the trees gone, next week you'll start to see a fence be installed on the south side of that property. The solar array that we started several years ago working with RG&E, Larson Engineering, NYSERDA, and our advisory, Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee, we have finally got the green light on all fronts. So this solar array will begin on around Monday of next week. What will happen is that we'll start to install the racks, the paneling, the wiring, the poles for the tie-in to RG&E. We expect the connection of that to the grid and commissioning by early fall. Once the system is online, it is expected to generate 1.2 million kilowatts of renewable energy annually. This project will provide power to the town of Penfield at a fixed rate for the next 20-plus years. And looking forward to that. Again, that project will start next week, and we should be commissioning it in end of August, early September. My second announcement is that due to the 4th of July holiday on Wednesday, July 4th, the Penfield Town offices and the library will be closed that day. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The town of Penfield will be holding its Independence Day celebration on Saturday, June 30th. The annual parade will kick off at 10 a.m., led by this year's parade marshal, retired Sheriff Patrick O'Flynn. The parade will travel through Penfield High School to the community center via 5 Mile Line Road, Route 441, and then Baird Road. 13 Wham Don Alhart will be the MC for the parade from the Penfield Fire Hall in the historic Four Corners District. In the evening, musical entertainment will take place within Harris Whalen Park beginning at 5 p.m. Black Rabbit and Doghouse will lead the night's lineup, and then Penfield's famous fireworks show will start at 10 p.m. Vendors and activities will be available within the park. Be sure to come enjoy the nation's birthday celebration in Penfield on Saturday, June 30th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cole.
I have two announcements. While the school year is ending and summer activities are beginning, the Penfield Ecumenical Food Shelf is active all year round and always needs the community's help in keeping their shelves full of inventory. There are many ways to help our community families who are in need during the summer. Please log into penfieldecumenicalfoodshelf.org for an updated listing of items currently needed. The food shelf is available every Wednesday at 1618 Jackson Road. And my other announcement is that my next community chat in July will be July 17th from 5:30 to 7 in the New Book area at the Penfield Library. That's it.
Great. Thank you very much. This brings us to public participation. Two opportunities to do that, 3 different ways. If you're here in the audience, you can address the board on any matter by coming to the podium. You can call in at 340-8771, or you can log on at penfield.org. I'll ask our clerk, is there anyone that has signed up to speak this evening?
No one has signed up.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address? First, Mr. Lindskog, and then Mr. Froome. So, Ed, welcome.
Ed Lindskog, 40 Willow Pond Way. A couple of weeks ago, I brought to the attention intersection of Willow Pond Way and Willow Pond Way. Can you give me an update as to what's going to happen there, if anything?
So I don't know what exactly might happen there, Ed. I did take a look at that. I drove by that next evening. I asked Jim Kreckman if he would take a look at that to see if, in fact, if we were to update the lighting at that location, if it would help. I think you indicated there were no crosswalks at that location. There are crosswalks that...
No, there's no signage. There was crosswalks.
There are the crosswalks, yeah, okay.
Right.
So, but what I asked Jim to do was to take a look at that. That's not a standard light pole. It's one of the older models.
Right.
The ones that we're putting in today are the LED version. So I asked him if he would take a look at that and then provide some feedback back. I had indicated that you would come in and had asked about that and the low lighting level at those crosswalks at that intersection.
There's also an issue with speed because of the straight line road there for about three-tenths of a mile from the top of the hill all the way to Penfield Road. So that's something we might want to take a look at too, see how we can slow people down a little bit.
Well, we can put that on the list. As you can imagine, this time of the year, we end up with I get
Right.
a lot of calls. The board members get a number of calls and emails asking for speed control. So I push that to Zone A, and I see them out at different locations. We could also put the speed trailer out there.
Yeah, the town
That'd be good.
had the speed trailer in the area there in the past. How about signage for the crosswalk, identifying the crosswalk ahead and things like that? Because there is no signage now indicating there is a crosswalk there. Is that something that can happen?
We can take a look, certainly take a look at that, and if there's nothing there, we'll do it within the guidelines of the New York State DOT manual. So we'll take a look at that, Ed.
Could we identify it as a handicap crosswalk? Because there are a lot of people in wheelchairs and walkers that go through that intersection.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know if they differentiate, between crosswalk versus handicap crosswalk. I get what you say. Technically, any crosswalk could be, for a handicap individual. We'll ask that question, but I tend to think it's just the standard crosswalk signage for that. But we'll take a look and see what the New York State DOT manual says for that.
The other item was Mark Valentine indicated there might be a grant for some sidewalk in the area between there and Wegmans.
Well, if you recall, I think I mentioned that we did apply for the CDBG grant like we do each year. We've been notified that it was received and that they believe it will be part of the program. It has to go to the legislature, and once the legislature, it's a recommendation from the county executive to the legislature. And historically, the legislature does in fact adopt those, but until we have that firm in hand, and again, we would look to do that work this year. Not with our crews, we would contract that out.
Also, the management at Legacy put up no trespassing signs on the woods, and the neighbors immediately went up in arms and called the town hall and said there was an agreement in place. I don't have a copy of that agreement, but I believe some of the neighbors have a copy of that agreement. I believe that was made with Mark IV, but it should have been transferable with the property. Is that not correct?
Well, so without having the benefit of, one, the contract in front of me or the agreement in front of me, two, knowing what the new owner did or didn't purchase or acquire from the current owner, I'm going to say we'll look into it, but until I know, the devil's always in the details.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, we can take a look at, see what, and I know if I'm
Jim-
not mistaken, I think you've already talked to Jim Costello, and I think Jim Costello's already chasing it down, so we're not going to have 3 or 4 people chasing the same thing. I'll leave it to Mr. Costello to continue doing his research on that.
Yeah, I didn't talk to him, but I know some of the neighbors called him.
I think you had a conversation with him last Wednesday here.
Back here? Oh, that's right, in the meeting,
So,
yeah.
like I say, we're not going to get 4 or 5 people chasing the same
Okay.
thing. I got to keep things focused so that we best utilize our resources.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Jim Froome.
Jim Froome, 11 Denonville Ridge. Since it's a light crowd, I can talk for 2 hours.
You can, but you might be talking to yourself.
Okay. First question is, can you give me the Cliff Notes version of where we are with the future of the Pines in terms of all the committees? And I think in one of the newsletters you said the town might be able to start, lightly using the property somehow, maybe by late July or whatever. Can you just kind of tell me what this year's plans are, both in the committees and the
Sure.
usage?
Sure. So we're doing some work as fill-in work right now. As you can imagine, when we put together the 2018 budget, we hadn't acquired the property, and so the work that we're doing is work fill-in by our DPW crews. So they haven't been out there in the last week or 10 days because of projects they're working on. They'll start back out there next week, cleaning up, continue to clean up some trees along Whalen and Clark Road and around the Pines, and then around the Clark House, excuse me, and then also taking care of some of those trees that are hung up out on the front 9. The goal is to try to get the front 9 so that folks will be able to at least get out and enjoy some walking and hiking in that area. And I would like to think that we might be able to be on track to do that end of July, early August. That's kind of the plan where we are. As it relates to the committees, the board has been working on screening a number of folks that have come in for both comprehensive plan and the Shadow Pines committee as well. So I'm looking for the board to provide their input to me by early next week, and then from there, what I'd like to do is to have those committees established in the July timeframe.
Okay. In regards to the kind of walking on the front nine, have you considered, I've played probably 1,000 rounds of golf there, so I could probably do this in my head right now if you want. We won't do that, but basically from tee to green on every hole, there's either a cart path on the left or right side of the cart. And on some holes, it goes all the way to the green. Sometimes it goes maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 yards. Then during the fairway, there's no cart path. And then either at the green or after the green, there's another cart path going to the next tee box.
Sure.
I don't know at the front, let's just say it's 50-50, but basically from the back of the tees, the course was 6,700 yards. And then if you throw in another 500 yards from, going from the tee to the next green, there's probably 7,500 to 8,000 yards there, which is a few miles of walking. So let's say 7.5 miles, so the front nine, let's call it 3 3/4. If you did just a path, all you'd have to do is mow between the blacktops on the, some holes not at all, whatever, 5, 6, 7, 8 feet wide.
Sure.
And you'd have a 3.5 mile walking path, and all you'd need to do is put a sign there, say walking only.
And that's what our plan is.
Is it? Okay.
Our plan is to have Rochester Lawn Care. We've already teed it up with Rochester Lawn Care to go in and do a wander mow and then connect the dots, connect the asphalt walk or pathways, and do somewhat of a wander mow, if you will, through there, knock that down so that, and then once foot traffic starts in there, the likelihood of the amount of mowing that you have to do after that is probably minimal. If you get it cut or double cut the first time, just before we open that up, it should take care of itself.
Okay. I don't know exactly when I asked you, but let's say 4 to 8 weeks ago, I asked if there were volunteers that wanted to help. Could you check into your liability insurance rider, what that would cost or what that entails? Has that been done?
So we have insurance on the property, as we do all of our parks, and so when people use that, we'll be covered for that. The actual initial cleanup we're doing with our crews with the trees and things like that. Then you would hope that anybody that would use that land, if they saw things that were left that you'd like to think most people would carry in, carry out, but anything that gets left by way of cups and containers and fast food bags and things like that, that hopefully folks would, in fact, take the initiative to pick those up and deposit those in the proper place. We'll have a couple of garbage pails in and around the start and kind of the finish, if you will. So if somebody's out walking and picks something up, they can deposit it when they get back from their walk, however far they elect to walk.
My question wasn't that so much. It's more if there's a formal group of volunteers that are offering to give time to the pines for light upkeep, mowing, gardening, whatever. Have you checked into the liability? What it costs to cover that?
Because it's town, it would be town sanctioned, town sponsored. Then it would be covered.
Okay. So if a group comes to you and says we'd like to help, there's really no roadblocks to that.
There is no roadblocks. Certainly, the board would take under consideration what those items might be. But again, we'll be moving forward with the Shadow Pines Committee to take a look at uses and future uses for that property.
Well, my understanding from other conversations is any kind of real progress, not progress, but commitment to doing something is probably a year to 2 years out, minimally.
That's probably right, Ed, or Jim, because what would have to happen is you'd have to identify what it is, that we're going to do with that area, and then how do you fund it? I mean, to cut a pathway from hole, T-box 1 to Green 9 is a relatively inexpensive item to do that. When you get into other things, then we have to get in, and part of the charge of the committee will be if you think about something to do at that particular location, what do you think the cost is, and how do you propose that we fund that? Do you build it into the budget? Do you float a bond? I mean, it's probably one thing if you're just cutting a path, and it's something else if you're looking to do something major.
What about small improvements that are donated?
So I think it would just be easy to say that if you've got an idea, submit it to my office. We'll make sure that the board gets it, and we'll take a look at anything that comes in.
Okay.
I think it's important, Jim, at this point to let DPW do their work. I want to make sure that people know not to go on the property because it's not safe right now.
Well, I think they know that. Yeah.
I've seen people, and I've been a little nervous about that. So I want to make sure that as we talk about volunteers, which is great, we're not being premature about it, and that anyone thinks that they can, embark upon that at this time.
The pond that's right off of Clark Road, are you guys, is there any, there's 3 ponds, one very small one, 2 relatively small ones on the property before the 8th hole, the 9th hole, and then along the 13th hole there, and there's a bridge from the 12th hole. Do those ponds cause any issues for being on public land, town-owned land?
Well, I'll say that today we have approximately 167 ponds of various sizes on town property, and it is like anything else. If you never have a problem, it's not an issue. If somebody is in the pond when they shouldn't be in the pond and something happens, you can rest assured that we get a claim against the town
Right, no, I
for
understand
that.
that.
So
I don't think anybody's going to swim in those ponds.
Yeah.
They're not swimming ponds.
well, I get it. Although we did have
Graduation's
one.
tomorrow night.
We did have a person that called into Anna's office a week or so ago that just happened to be standing by the pond, just happened to have his gear and was willing to go in and clean the golf balls out of that, and we politely said
On
no.
the 9th hole?
On the 9th hole. And we politely said, no, we don't need to have that happen. And so I'm never amazed at what pops up from time to time.
I understand. I was concerned with the pond on the Clark Road there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if that was something you were going to want to fill in or do something with, but that's an overflow pond, which has overflowed the road before, so that's
Yeah.
kind of a necessary pond.
Well, absolutely, and we don't, our town engineer, Mark Valentine, gets a lot nervous when anybody starts talking about filling in any ponds. So our goal has been to, continue to maintain those ponds that we're responsible for. In this case, that is a pond that we're responsible for. And we're always making sure, in the Watershed Management Committee that Paula sits on, we're always looking to make sure that the ponds are functioning properly. May not always be the pristine look that people would like a Canandaigua lake shore, but all of our ponds are reviewed by our Watershed Management, and if anything needs to be done by way of any dredging or anything like that, there's some things we can do with DEC permission, and sometimes we don't need it, depending upon what it is and what's feeding into it. So Mark Valentine and his team, Mike O'Connor, are required to visit those ponds a minimum of once a year, and then we have to prepare a stormwater management plan back to the state on an annual basis. So for now, we'll continue to keep an eye on it, and but yes, that is a very important pond that ultimately needs to be maintained.
And then I believe I heard either in one of your postings or maybe at one of the town meetings that you guys have inspected all the buildings, and I assume that obviously the Clark houses, you're going to do something with that.
Sure.
But the barns are in good enough shape that they're going to stay there until there's some sort of long-term plan?
That is correct.
There won't be any knocking down of those?
That is not our plan at this time.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, Jim. Jeff Burns?
Good evening.
evening.
Jeff Burns, 39 Scarborough Park. I am, again, one of the founders of Save Shadow Pines, and on behalf of the group, I'm pleased to announce that we've officially transitioned to become Friends of Shadow Pines. So we intend to stay engaged to assist wherever we can with good stewardship of Shadow Pines. And we'd like to work with the town to help provide volunteer assistance for cleanups, and our plan is also to have some special projects and events at Shadow Pines when the timing's appropriate. We're also very well positioned to help out with fundraising to help pay for items that could include parts of trail maintenance or signage or something of that sort. We've got around 1,900 followers on our Facebook page, and a lot of people have been indicating that they're very eager to get out on Shadow Pines, as I'm sure you've been hearing too.
Day doesn't go by.
Can you say a little bit more about what needs to be done further? You mentioned the front nine, and that would be open in July, beginning of August.
Is what we're shooting for.
Hopefully. How about the back nine? What's the status there? And
Well, as you can imagine, it's a little bit, terrain is a little bit different. Trees are a little bit thicker through that area. We have been having some problems with motorbikes, motocross bikes in that area, so we've alerted the Sheriff's Department. So for those that, feel that they can use that as their personal motocross site, don't be surprised if they come up over a hill and there's a sheriff on a motorbike and prepared to issue them a ticket.
Right.
But for right now, we wanted to get and because, again, we didn't build anything into the budget for 2018, we want to get at least the front nine or everything north of Clark Road, get that opened up so that folks could start to use it. And then we will jump to the back nine and then, again, use that as fill-in, get it cleaned up, make it safe, trees hung up, widowmakers, all those other things. So I don't have a good plan for you right now.
too early to tell.
We're going through the budget process. There is already a line item that has been added at my request to the 2019 budget. The number hasn't been put in there. Town board hasn't discussed that. We've just embarked on that process. In fact, all the department heads have to have all the materials in to us by next Friday for the first cut review. And as time goes on, and as we head into August, September, we'll have a better handle as to what we'll be looking to put in for a number for work to be done at Shadow Pines.
Okay. So a lot of ideas are percolating among the people in the Friends of Shadow Pines. While many say that there's certainly room for multiple uses, the vast majority seem to want the majority of the land as much as possible to be preserved in as natural a state as possible. That's the feedback we're getting so far. And as you described for the front nine, then to have a minimum cutting to be able to maintain the fairways as fields. So that sounds like it's aligned in that part. It's going to be tricky going forward. Some say that there's a need for more ball fields. Some others strongly object to any more ball fields and feel as though that there are a lot of ball fields and plenty of ball fields in other parks, and it would be nice to have a park that's set aside or an area that's set aside in more of a natural state, and that nature has a chance as well. In terms of the committee, can you talk a little bit about how the committee is being selected for the Citizens Committee?
Sure. Similar to what we did for the Shadow Pines Citizens Committee, board will be making recommendations, their recommendations, and then each board member has been reviewing the number of all those folks that are requested in interest to participate not only in the comprehensive plan but in the Shadow Pines Committee. And we'll be looking to do that via town board resolution, and I'm looking to do that in July.
Okay, and so both committees you anticipate having established in July?
That is our goal.
Right. Yep.
That is the goal. Yeah.
We're also getting some people that are saying now that they would like to be involved in the committee or one of the committees? Is it too late, or is it still possible to?
What I would say to them, Jeff, if they better hurry up. I mean, it's not like we haven't talked about this for the last
I
6+
understand.
months.
Yeah.
So I tell them to not sit on their hands,
Yep.
get the information in.
Okay.
But they should have the information in, I would say, by no later than next week.
Okay, great. I'll get the word out.
And then the board will add it in. I know the board has been doing a lot of work, looking at all the folks, speaking with folks and what have you. So I would say get it in sooner rather than later.
Great. Okay, I'll be sure to get the word out. I wanted to hear it from you here tonight. And then the first meeting, do you expect that in the fall for both of these groups? Again, you're hoping.
Stay tuned, Jeff.
Right, okay.
Stay tuned.
Gotcha. Let's see. And then, can you say anything about if there have been any proposals for the Clark House that look like they've got some legs?
There's been a lot of interest for a lot of different things.
Yep.
One of the things I think this board talked about was, working with our town attorney and the appropriate folks to put together a form of RFP to go out. And it's just as important to ask for proposals, but it's also equally important to say these are the things we don't want.
Yeah.
We're not looking for someone to come in with a sports bar
Right.
with 100 TVs and a volleyball court in the backyard and hooping and hollering and everything like that. So we're looking at pulling that together, and would like to see some entity get into the Clark House. It's been empty for a couple of years. It needs a little TLC. Mm-hmm. And there's some things that we're just working on. We discovered there's 8 furnaces and 1 boiler in that building. So there's some things that we're just kind of working through. And if you take a look, if you do a walk around the building, you'll see that there's some corners of the building that got some dry rot where the gutters weren't maintained and water just flowed over, and a building that's built in the 1800s. Got a little wear and tear on it. So there's a little bit of work to do, and this board is, again, we're working through it, step by step. We don't want to rush into it. We want to make sure that it's the right use for the residents in the area, the right use for the town overall. And the town is looking to continue to maintain ownership and would look to just have some type of a lease arrangement.
Yeah. And in a lease arrangement like that, it's fairly common that the group that would lease it would very well help out with the improvements on the building,
no
that the town
question
wouldn't
about
be looking at a huge expense.
No question about it.
Great. Let's see. So last night, the Friends of Shadow Pines co-sponsored a presentation by the Community Design Center of Rochester, and we invited the board and you, Mr. Supervisor, to attend. We did have Zach Nessinger from the Planning Department and Bob Knauer who both attended, so it was good to have them there. We were sorry that you weren't able to join us with that. It was an interesting presentation. One of the things that seemed to be very important that came up out of that was having public participation in terms of the use of shadow pines, that the committee, of course, that you're looking to set up is an important part of that, but they really emphasized of having community-wide participation, that everybody who wants to participate would have opportunities to have their voices heard and to kind of brainstorm and all. And so they had recommended having a charrette design meeting to include all of the publics that would be involved, that would be affected by that. Is that something that you would be planning to do through the committee?
Again, we're at the early stages, Jeff.
Yeah.
I'm not going to commit to anything at this time, one way or the other. We'll get a committee established. We'll certainly provide resources, staff, any other resources historically as we have. And we'll go through the process.
Okay.
I am familiar with that process. Our team of planners, planning board, our staff on a regular basis during the course of each and every year get together with professionals out in the community and what have you. And I know that a number of our planning board members and staff members have been involved with that process in the past.
Good. Well, that organization seems to have a great deal of expertise in that area in terms of organizing those things. I hope they'll be strongly considered as a group that could help. And
Well, and I think we've said all along that, no different than what we've done with the comprehensive plan in the past, is that we have held public information meetings. We've brought people in different organizations, business organizations, and things like that. So that would be a plan to do that, again, not only for the comprehensive plan, but again, as the committee around Shadow Pines is formed, to take a look at what resources are around internal and external.
good. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hold on. Second-time speakers. I got to see if there's any first-time speakers. Any additional first-time speakers? Okay. Second-time speakers. Jim?
Just a real quick follow-up from something I heard Jeff say. At that CDC meeting last night, there was just a short talk about historical buildings and, what towns do and don't do with them. I remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, when the Dolomite Corporation was locally owned, when they would make changes to the Clark House for the golfers and for the weddings and the restaurant, there were some things that happened where the golfers saying, "Why'd you do that?" And the answer was, "Well, this is a historical building, and the town only lets us do certain things." And one of the comments last night, and I mean, this is just very germane here, but one of the comments last night, the person doing the talk said she was in favor of historical designation, but maybe a little bit more relaxed code sometimes when it was appropriate. And in terms of the Clark House, I'm just kind of throwing this out here right now, and I don't know everything what they went through, but basically the cart barn, which is that short building, kind of like a double-depth garage, if you will, behind the Clark House, that was done in the design of the outside of the Clark House and the same type of boarding and everything. And just for anybody that doesn't know, this whole thing started 3.5 years ago. The first committee meetings on the community committee was 3 years ago this summer. I mean, right about now probably that we started meeting. But anyway, in the early stages when there was a few groups trying to buy the golf course, an architect was talked to, and in terms of adding another building, they said if it was allowed, it would be no extra cost. And we're talking about not a $10 million building, but maybe $1.5 million, $2 million building as an additional building for a meeting or a clubhouse or whatever, to match that design of the Clark House so it would fit in with it. And I'm just kind of curious, is Penfield's stance on the historical buildings always been the rule of the law? No, I mean, like what they said back in the 80s and 90s, we can't do this, we can't do that because it would alter the building? Or is there some leeway or maybe more leeway now that the town owns that for anybody that's thinking to use that part of the property, that they might be able to add on to it? Not maybe add on to the building so much, but an adjacent building that would still fit the design, what it looks like.
So I'll let Councilwoman Metzler, she is our liaison. What I'll say is that it's a local designated building. It's not a state designated building. So that's good news. Not that I'm here to trash the state, but whenever the state gets involved, it's never easy. So it's a local designation. And then Councilwoman Metzler can talk about, I think the philosophy of this current Historic Preservation Board and what they look to do in and around historic structures and buildings.
Yeah, certainly the Historic Preservation Board takes a look at it on a case-by-case basis. We have to be certainly mindful of being consistent in that if there is some ability to exempt the Clark House from something or waive some sort of requirement to allow us or allow someone to expand it, we have to make sure that that certainly conforms with the town standards for a precedent, if nothing less, nothing more than that. So I can't answer as to, I think we're getting a little bit far too in the weeds right now on what is going to happen at the Clark House. I can't answer specifically as to what could or could not happen. I also don't vote. I'm not a voting member of the Historic Preservation Board. I'm the liaison.
Well, things like this are important for if a group of people have an idea that might be met with approval with the town board. there's a fair amount of cost involved in planning some kind of venture.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and anything that's historic preservation related is very case specific, so you'd have to come up, we'd have to see that plan.
No, I
And certainly
understand
I'd
that,
certainly-
but what I'm looking for is a little bit of guidelines there, because if I had a usage for that and I came to you with it, and it involved maybe not on some addition to the building, then even if you approve it, the prospective renter, if you will, has spent some money, but now they have to go on a request for quote to see if anybody else has a better idea or can beat the revenue stream for you. And so that's why I'm trying to get, is the short answer, it's a case by case, but there's some leniency as long as it's not crazy out there in terms, I mean, if it fits the design and the look and the feel of the time period and what the Clark House looks like now, it's a possibility. Is that an assumption?
I would say that anything that anyone would propose by way of alteration would go before the Historic Preservation Board, and they would review that on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I can't speak as to what degree of leniency that they would afford. Right now, you're kind of talking real general in terms of in historic preservation, it's very specific. If you come to any of the meetings, you'll see paint colors, shutter type, window type. There's a lot of different factors that come into play beyond just expanding.
Is
on a
that just on the outside?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, the inside, I think, has been cut up over the years. I think it's really the...
There's not a house inside.
Exactly right.
It's a restaurant.
Right, yeah, right on. Okay. Anyone else? Public participation? There's a second opportunity at the end of the agenda. Okay, we'll move on. Additions and deletions to the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on to the minutes of May 16th, 2018. We have the minutes before us. It's a summary of our meeting of May 16th, 2018. Would entertain a motion of approval of those minutes.
I move that the minutes of May 16th be approved.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Since our last meeting, has the town board, town clerk, or town attorney received any petitions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to resolutions by function, starting with law and finance, please.
Authorization to maintain properties and assess the charges to the 2018 property tax bills.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas on December 16, 2015, the Town Board of the Town of Penfield adopted a resolution to enact Local Law 3 of 2015 entitled, "A Local Law to Provide for the Codification of Local Laws, Ordinances, and Certain Resolutions of the Town of Penfield into a Municipal Code to be designated the Code of the Town of Penfield." Whereas the purpose of the Code of the Town of Penfield includes, among other things, to provide safety, health protection, and general welfare of persons and property in the town by requiring the maintenance of such properties within the town. Whereas the properties of, and there's a list of 22 properties, have failed to maintain the subject properties in accordance with the application of this code and its requirements. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Penfield authorizes the Building and Code Compliance Inspector to have the properties properly maintained. Be it further resolved that the Town Board authorizes cost of said maintenance and any subsequent maintenance during the 2018 season to be charged to the 2019 property taxes of that property. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Approval of issuance of a conditional use permit to allow a licensed massage therapist at 1832 Penfield Road.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas an application has been received by the Penfield Town Board for the issuance of a conditional use permit pursuant to Chapter 250-5.10D.5 of the code to allow for a licensed massage therapist at 1832 Penfield Road. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Penfield held a public hearing at the Penfield Town Hall on June 6, 2018 at 7 p.m. to hear said application. Now therefore be it resolved that the applicant's request for this conditional use permit to allow a licensed massage therapist at 1832 Penfield Road is granted subject to the following conditions. For the record, Mr. Supervisor, there are 7 conditions on this resolution. All conditions are consistent with what we see in these type of applications in the Four Corners zoning district. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Budget amendment in Highway Fund for services to Penfield Central School District.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town board approved the Department of Public Works to provide various services to the Penfield Central School District, including paving parking lots. Whereas crews have been completing this paving work this summer. Whereas the town board desires to have an up-to-date budget in relation to current expenditures and appropriations and revenues. Now therefore be it resolved that the 2018 budget is hereby approved and amended. Under revenue, under Penfield Central School District, $205,000. Under appropriations for contracted projects, the same amount, $205,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. This work will be all at the high school. We will be milling and paving all of the asphalt in that area, I think with the exception of the student parking, but all the teacher parking, roadways, and loading dock areas, everything will be milled and paved by the town for the school district. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Budget amendment in the Library Fund.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas in their monthly meeting, the library board approved the appropriation of $2,540 from restricted fund balance for the purchase and installation of an air conditioning unit for the server room. Whereas the town board desires to have an up-to-date budget in relation to current appropriations and revenues. Be it further resolved that the 2018 budget be amended and approved as appropriated restricted fund balance of $2,540 to appropriations for equipment at $2,540. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Adoption of the revised Town of Penfield sidewalk policy.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town board of the town of Penfield wishes to adopt the revised Town of Penfield sidewalk policy, which has revised the sidewalk waiver fees for developers and included a new map for the areas intended for new sidewalk construction. Whereas the town board discussed the revisions of the sidewalk policy at its work session meeting on May 23rd and June 13th, 2018. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby adopts the Town of Penfield sidewalk policy and here attached to and known as Schedule A. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Supervisor, just briefly, I'd like to, commend Mark Valentine for taking the lead on this, this initiative. This is a policy that or a concept that we've discussed now for several years during work sessions and throughout the year. And this is actually a piece of or a guiding document now. This policy is actually going to help streamline the efforts in Mark's office as well as the board, our work sessions, and a lot of thought and due diligence went into this policy, and I do appreciate his efforts, and I just wanted to recognize Mark for all that hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
I would just like to copy what Councilman Quinn said. I think Mark and his department did a lot of work, spent a lot of time updating this policy. It was sorely needed, and I thank them for their efforts.
All right. Thank you. And by way of a little bit of history, the sidewalk policy was originally adopted in April of 1979. It was amended in 81, 83, 88, 96, 2000. And so long overdue for a little bit of an overhaul, and that will take place when this board takes action here in just a moment. Seeing no further discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. making a determination of non-significance and adopting a negative declaration for new sidewalks along Empire Boulevard.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town board supports the construction of 900 linear feet of new sidewalks on the north side of Empire Boulevard, and whereas the proposed locations of the sidewalks were reviewed and it was determined that they will not have a detrimental impact on the environment, whereas the town board, acting as lead agency pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has classified this proposal as an unlisted action. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board makes a determination of non-significance and adopts a negative declaration for this proposal, a copy of which is attached hereto and made a part of this resolution.
Thank you. Discussion. This will continue our sidewalks on Empire Boulevard, or along Empire Boulevard, ultimately to the Aroniquoit town line. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization for the purchase and installation of an industrial natural gas generator for the Penfield Town Hall.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town board has identified the need to replace an outdated and undersized generator with a new natural gas generator capable of powering the systems necessary to provide uninterrupted service to our residents. Whereas there's a generator available for purchase utilizing a New York State bid, and whereas the town board approves appropriation of $33,850 from the unassigned general fund balance as an amendment to the 2018 budget for the purchase of the generator. Now therefore be it resolved that the following 2018 budget amendment is approved. Revenue amount, $33,850 to appropriations amount, $33,850.
Thank you. Further discussion?
No.
Seeing no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization to post temporary no parking signs.
So moved.
Second.
Whereas it is the town of Penfield's responsibility to promote and maintain public safety on roads within the town of Penfield. And whereas pursuant to New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law, Section 1660, the town board is granted the authority to authorize the establishment of traffic control devices on town highways within the town of Penfield. And whereas the town of Penfield wishes to keep the neighborhoods around the town's Independence Day celebration, parade route, and festivities at Harris Whalen Park accessible to emergency vehicles. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby authorizes and establishes that no parking will be established along both and/or one side of all and/or parts of the following streets for the duration of the town's Independence Day celebration, parade, and festivities at Harris Whalen Park. Baird Road, north of Penfield Road, Peachtree Road, Hotchkiss Circle, Wheelock Road, Kenmont Drive, Henderson Drive, Avonmore Way, Hidden Meadow, Hillrise Drive, Lazy Trail, Valley Green Drive, Valley Green Circle, Maple Hill Farm Road, Maple Leaf Circle, Timber Glen Trail, Harris Whalen Park Road. And now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby authorizes and directs the Director of Public Works to post said temporary no parking signs along both and/or one side of said streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. See no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization for supervisor to sign recreation contracts.
So moved.
Second.
This authorizes the town supervisor to sign one recreation contract. It's with Little Medical School, an instructor for the Little Medical School program in July.
All right, thank you.
That's it.
Further discussion? See no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
This takes us through our resolutions. This brings us to old business. Is there any old business to come before the board this evening? Seeing none, is there any new business to come before the board this evening? Again, seeing none. This brings us to our second public participation. Again, if you're here in the audience, you can address the board on any matter. You can call in at 340-8771, or you can log on at penfield.org. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on any matter? Okay. The next legislative session of the town board will be July 18th. as July 4th, which is the first Wednesday of the month, is the holiday. That meeting was not scheduled for that time. So the next legislative meeting will be July 18th at 7 p.m. in this room. And there being no further business to come before the board this evening, the June 20th, 2018 legislative session of the town board stands adjourned at 7:57 p.m. Thank you to PCTV. Thank you to everyone that participated.